The so-called merger of AWB and GrainCorp looks set to put further pressure on smaller agribusinesses struggling in the current economic climate. GrainCorp, already a major player in rural Australia, will now be a mainstream corporate heavyweight. Chairman Alison Watkins says the takeover or merger is positive for both companies and for farmers.
It's a really exciting day for Australian agriculture, I think. We've today announced the merger of GrainCorp and AWB. That's something that I think is just strategically very compelling for both companies, and it's going to make us a bigger and better organisation, and we'll do a much better job as a result of that in terms of being able to compete on the international stage and serve growers better and our end customers better.
That's Alison Watkins, GrainCorp boss, who incidentally wears about a dozen hats, including one for the family farm in Western Victoria. To the markets now, that new company will like this current news. Wheat continues to be the big story. Values rose strongly through what one analyst called a rampaging international market, while locally, their ASX futures market had its busiest day on record. Let's start with the spot market, where there was also plenty of action. Wheat, canola and sorghum all went up. That price rise for wheat puts the increase at $66 a tonne in less than 4 months. To Chicago now, where one of the few downsides was with corn, where good American crop conditions put a slight dampener on prices. A worsening drought in Russia and some good export sales, plus a weakening American dollar, gave some impetus to wheat and soybeans. And as mentioned, ASX wheat futures were spinning. Thursday saw 300,000 tonnes traded, an all-time high. And prices reacted accordingly. The East Coast was up almost $9, while WA wheat went up more than $10 a tonne. Now moving on, and probably the biggest price surprise in agribusiness over recent years has been the price of mutton. As the size of our national flock diminished, the demand for sheep meat went the other way, and lamb and mutton prices headed north. Here's how mutton has moved from the start of last year. I know that price has been a real head-shaker in the bush, as most graziers expected demand to flatten, prices to react accordingly, but that hasn't been the case. And Australia's biggest sheep processor, Roger Fletcher, told Landline those high prices look set to continue.
I think, don't get carried away. We've had some extreme prices for mutton in the last 6 months. But I do think markets will still stay strong. I mean, it's not going to stay at that bright levels, but I think the sheep industry's got a lot going for it in the next few years. We're probably one of the only countries in the world that can grow sheep, and that way economically. Europe, New Zealand, South America and China, all those numbers are down dramatically. People want to buy protein and they want a selection of choice.
Roger Fletcher can also see a reverse of a long trend where graziers are now looking at sheep rather than cattle.
It's the first time we've seen a turnaround where people are trying to get back into sheep, and hopefully that can grow. I think there's if we can make management of sheep a lot easier and we can grow the wool market, which is important. That's something that we're working on, and it's keeping production costs down.
The kill figures tell the real story. The eastern states' sheep slaughter number in June was about 240,000, almost 50% below the 5-year monthly average. Last week, prices fell below the 400-cent level for the first time this winter. And the stronger dollar didn't help, but lamb prices went up. A flush of new season lambs emerged out of what's been so far a relatively mild winter. To cattle now, and the terrific season across the east continues to push restocker demand. Very often at this time of year, producers are destocking. This year, the rain means it's the opposite. Other categories fell. Trade cattle dropped away after several weeks on the up, and the Eastern Young Cattle Indicator closed at its highest level since October 2008. And the wool market remains in recess. Auctions will resume next week. And that's the Landline check on prices.